you wanna bet that I can get you back inside your head before the summer ends and spread a little love. Just for a little fun, I'll make you come back to me before the rise of every sun. Baby, it's meant to be, I know you got a man, but he don't understand. You're gonna be a heartbreaker, you're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
All right, I was going to play that whole thing because I wanted you to hear it, but that is the Grammy balloted band Bowen, if you want to know, and that is the People's Pundit theme song from now on because I love it. All right, you're watching Inside the Numbers on May 20th, Wednesday, with the People's Pundit. I am the People's Pundit, Rich Barris. You guys can follow me at People's_Pundit on Twitter. All right, yesterday I took a lot of flack for not addressing these polls that came out yesterday. We'll do that today, okay? National polls. What are the relevance of national polls? So we see these nationals that are close or not so close. And then we see Trump down in battleground states that he needs to win, like Arizona, from Ohio Predictive Insights yesterday, which I mentioned, even though it wasn't slotted because I knew that so many of you would want to talk about it. But overall, I think that this thing has to be won or lost in the Rust Belt. Arizona was not needed in 2016, folks, because Trump broke the blue wall. If he holds the blue wall, then he really won't need Arizona anyway. But do you want to lose it if you're a Trump supporter? Is that something you want to take the risk of doing? All right, so we'll get into that. But we'll also take a look at, again, there's a CNBC change poll coming out. It's out, actually. But I know in about a half an hour about another poll that's being released. And I don't want to blow it up because it's embargoed until 10:30, but I'll start this. And then when we get closer to that 10:30 hour, we'll start to talk about it. All right. So again, if you guys are following, you're watching along on YouTube, don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel and hit that little notification bell. We have like a really high rate for that notification bell. So keep it up. And if you watch on Facebook Live, then like the page People's Pundit Daily, and it will notify you when we're about to go live. You're going to see some changes this week with the show on, we're going to try to mimic how it looked before so we don't, culture shock you guys. But told you there would be more bells and whistles. And now that I got my partner in crime back, Laura, it's going to be easier. All right. So, or easier on me. Harder on her, easier on me. But it'll also be easier for me to make those changes so I don't have to try to, stumble all over myself while we're doing this. We'll talk about the latest news du jour, which is always, of course, the coronavirus pandemic. I rarely get a chance to write something myself anymore. Most of the time, I just edit everything. And because I look at everything that goes out on People's Pundit Daily. That's why I've never been fact checked. That is not going to happen to me. All right. Or at least not legitimately anyway. So I look at everything that goes out and I never have the chance to actually write anything myself. And yesterday we went over the show. We went over some of the latest indicators out of Florida, and and I wanted to make it an article. So I beefed it up a little bit, and we'll talk about that too. And then also there's a lot going on with Russia and Michael Flynn. We have the email we told you was going to come out with Susan Rice. The fully unredacted portion is now out, and we will talk about that as well. And what Sidney Powell is doing to try to get Judge Emmett Sullivan to follow the law and listen to the Justice Department guideline to drop the case. Look, it's going to be 90 degrees here this week. All right. I am a Floridian. I'm a suit wearer, but it's polo shirt week for me, folks. All right. So, I'm a little crazy. I come out with crazy colors. I'm a crazy color. I'm not as crazy as my wife wants me to be. She's like, oh, that could have been pink instead of purple, or some crazy color that men don't usually wear. But I'm funky like that. I'm Florida and I'm funky, but I'm not that funky. All right, so we'll do that too. Let's start off first because we went over this already, and let's start off with the Florida data, and then also when we get into talking about polls, I'll bring up what I did not get to yesterday, and apologies for that. I read all of your comments. I know when I miss something I said I was going to miss, and I read, even if I don't respond to you in a DM or you send me an email, you find my email online, I'm reading them and I see them. So I will circle back to Mike Garcia, the data we had on Mike Garcia's performance. Yeah, I mean, I could blurt it out right now, but we'll get to it when we do the polling. Shocking, which is why, somebody says, well, it leans Garcia. It didn't. And we're going to tell you why. All right, but let's first look at this Florida story, okay? Like I said, I rarely get a chance to do this. So now that I did, I'm going to make it a little bit smaller if you guys don't mind. All right, now that I did, I want to share it with you. We went over this yesterday on the show a little bit. The state of Florida is a very diverse state. We have 60% white, usually in the 60 plus percent white. We have high teens Hispanic, low teens African Americans. We have rural areas. We have suburban areas. We have metro areas. We have urban areas. It's not a state with extreme high population centers, but we do have areas like when you see the votes come in Broward County, we have Miami-Dade, and it's it's a good microcosm of the country. Ron DeSantis did not force a lockdown in some, like we've seen in some of the other states, like Governor Whitmer in Michigan, Tom Wolf in Pennsylvania, Murphy in New Jersey, and of course, Mr. Lockdown himself, Andrew Cuomo. He did not do that here. And in some areas where it was more strict, like in my area, that was because he gave the localities a lot of control. And just like yesterday in our locality, it's ridiculous. Our city wanted a lot more strict provisions. Our county, which is not really represented by the city, they did not. So the county commission yesterday voted first to remove the mandatory mask order, and the city called up, had a canary. So they revoted. They caved like cowards. They revoted and they reimposed it, but they reimposed it without criminal penalties. I believe it was like a $500 fine or something. So if you went to go walk into Publix or anywhere where you interact with people, if you went to go do that, then you were told to put on a mask. If you refused, you got a criminal penalty. And I know this because I went to go walk into Publix the very first day it was enacted, and there was a police officer out there. And I said, yeah, I'm not doing that. Sorry. And he's like, excuse me. I said, yeah, I'm not wearing that mask. I went on this case, and it's true. It's like, I am a vet, I don't tout it, but I I definitely threw it. I was like, look, man, I'm a veteran. I'm not wearing your damn mask. All right. Don't put me in a state, man. And he let me go that day. But from that point on, instead of, maybe I'll like put it around my neck or something. So if anybody gave me a crooked look, I was like, all right, whatever. We should go over that one day, but there's a new study that says masks can reduce infections by 70%. That's a new study. And I believe that one's in, it's either in China, Japan, or it's in an Asian country. But some of the other studies here were inconclusive at best. Most of the masks that we get that you'll get from Walgreens or CVS, 40% gets in straight through. The other 60 gets in on the sides. Nobody really knows how to wear them properly anyway. I'm constantly watching people touch the keypads at Publix and type in their numbers and then touch their face, rub their eyes, lift the mask up, itch their nose, and then go back and finish putting in their PIN number. I mean, so, if you're not a culture that really is used to it anyway, but at this point, it's for me, my own personal opinion, I think it's ridiculous given the numbers, but at this point, even I am willing, whatever makes you feel better to get this economy rolling again, whatever makes you feel better. Even if we wind up hitting 120,000 deaths, let's say the IHME model is right. Even if we wind up hitting that, it could be that we did far more damage and long-term damage by closing these schools, closing these economies down, preventing, like I've said before, preventing women from going to get pap smears, preventing elective surgeries that are elective but crucial to people's lives, preventing a newly clean drug addict who was addicted to opioids from going to the NA meeting, preventing somebody who's an alcoholic from getting to a sponsor at AA. It's almost immeasurable. This was never about life versus money. This was always an argument of life versus life. All right, let's get into this. Florida COVID-19 data makes strong case for reopening. Written by yours truly. In Florida, 64 of our 67 counties entered phase 1 on May 4th. All right, and I probably should just read this verbatim, and again, the latest data is a strong case for why everybody should have followed his lead. And Governor Kemp, we were waiting on some stuff from their Department of Health. We were going to get to Georgia today. There's so much on the docket here. We might as well just, we'll get to Georgia, but we're not going to get to it today because I wanted to circle back. And some of the charts that we went over yesterday on the show are in this article, updated with new data from the Department of Health, which just further proved the point anyway. So let's keep reading. Despite large increases in total residents tested, the positivity rates for both the phase 1 counties and statewide haven't exhibited spikes. All right. And let's get through this. Here is my handy dandy little chart. And there was 4 days or 5 days, whatever, a couple days that we needed to basically get the rest from the Florida Department of Health. And we will. But in the meantime, I thought I killed that, my man. But in the meantime, the difference in the positivity rates statewide versus the 64 phase 1 counties are right there. All right. Of course, statewide is always a little bit more because you have Broward, Palm Beach, and Miami that are not in those 64 counties. Number one, of course, the numbers are going to be more when you have higher population centers. And number two, they're the ones who didn't really qualify for phase 1, not yet anyway. But you'll see that in truth, we're not really there. They themselves, even those 3 counties, are not really exhibiting this huge problem. And of course, people are going in and out of these counties. It's not as if like people are going to these 64 counties and then not going and returning back. Anyway, so here is the target rate, which is supposed to be generally below 10%. That's what our target rate is here in Florida. As you can see, we have never even come close to hitting that. All right. April 27th is the first day that we have logged here, that we have more going back to earlier than this from the Florida Department of Health. I just wanted to make sure that at least the bulk of this was both positivity rates in phase 1 counties and positivity rates statewide. All right. Those 64 counties, obviously, like I said before, they lag just about every day. But generally speaking, overall, we just have not seen the general rule of thumb here is the more testing that is conducted, the more positive results that we can expect. And we've seen that nationally, but that's not occurred in Florida. And that goes back to maybe why, maybe because the highest rate, the highest category for environmental infections is indoors. So if you didn't do strict lockdowns, then maybe, and of course we didn't have the same thing with nursing homes, even though we have a much older population. We still had it. It's bad. It was bad, but you can tell the way things were done down here, it could have been a lot worse. All right. But anyway, that's not occurred in Florida, and positivity rates have remained well below the target of below 10%. On May 11th, phase 1 counties reported the lowest rate to date. There's a clear downward trend for the percent positive for laboratory testing, which has declined now to its lowest rate over the last 6 weeks. And you can see it right here. Science and data thing we talked about yesterday. It's been 2 days. I was thinking maybe somebody would come out with something. Maybe somebody would snap back at this. They had this so-called whistleblower who claims she was fired so Ron DeSantis could fudge the data. Why? For what reason would he do that? The data's good. What incentive would he have to kick out some no-name nobody who works on the dashboard, the very dashboard I'm getting this data from? That's what I showed you yesterday with the charts and the maps, county by county. That's the dashboard she claims to be fired from because Well, the speculation was that he was trying to fudge something. Why would he fudge anything? The data looks good. It makes no sense. It supports the actions that he has taken. All right. The data can further be supported by comparing the sum of persons testing positive and negative each week, as testing rose nearly twofold from roughly 66,500 for the week ending April 11th to roughly 118,100 for the week ending May 16th. The sum of persons testing positive actually fell from about 7,200 to 5,100. So you can see this in the chart right here. Look at how much testing was conducted. How much more testing? It's nearly a twofold jump. And yet overall, in time, we've had bobbing up and down for weeks, for a couple of weeks. April 11th, April 18th, went a little bit, to 6.3. The following week after that, it fell again to 5.8, 4.5, 4.4, ticked up a little bit, but not, and that's what this chart shows, even though it did, it's the overall percent positives did not, because it's testing more. All right, so is this, what percentage of 4.4 thousand is 115.1? Is this more than that? That's what that means. All right, so since phase 1 was initiated on May 4th, intensive care unit hospitalizations for patients diagnosed with COVID-19 have declined 21%. Ventilator usage has fallen 32%. This chart I'm speeding along to because I want to show you, and maybe I can grab this one. This is what we looked at yesterday. It's not uncommon for this stuff to be revised and updated. This is the chart that we actually showed you yesterday. And you can see only a handful of deaths over the last 2 days. The 17th was lower than you can see now on the chart here. What happened? Well, it's simple. It was updated. It was revised. Was it a big deal? Of course, every life is a big deal. I don't mean it like that. What I'm saying is, was it significant enough that it disrupted the trend? Did it disrupt the overall trend, which is declining? And deaths are a lagging indicator. It didn't. Resident deaths, which are a lagging indicator, posted their smallest totals per day over the last 4 days during the April 19 to May 18 period. This is often updated and revised. The latest count for May 18 is only 3 deaths, following a revised 17, and that's for May 17, 15, that's for May 16th, and 24 for May 15th. So obviously, we're not going to reach anywhere near those peaks. And what does this suggest? It suggests that the curve was flattened longer ago than we initially thought. So remember this as we're thinking about how we extended these lockdowns. All right. I know a lot of people were, if you support the president and everything he does, you found some way to defend that move. If you don't, then you just want him to fail either way. If you're someone in the middle who just cares, about the results and it's really not, you're disconnected from the emotion of it and you're just looking at the reality, then that was not this, at least this suggests that was not the right move to have the CDC and the federal government recommend continued lockdowns, which ended up being another 30 days. Why? Because the curve appears to have been flattened, at least in our state. And that's true, by the way, nationally as well. The curve appears to have been flattened about 2 weeks before they said it would be if we extended the guidelines. All right. So that compares this latest 4-day trend. And really, it's more than 4 days. Look at the chart. The latest 4-day trend compares to a peak of 58 daily death toll recorded on May 4th. That very day is the day that 64 out of 67 counties in Florida entered phase 1. So while criticisms over phase 1 were many, were flying everywhere, Ron DeSantis was a very popular governor. His approval rating was in the high 60s before this happened. I was breaking my neck trying to look up at it. This is what, they were criticizing him, trying to drag that down. And apparently, look, at least from just a numbers point of view, it appears to have been completely unfounded because we're just not seeing that. We're just not seeing it. All right. So anyway, yeah, I'm gonna, I will take some stuff. It was wrong. It was wrong. Look, this is why I'm hard on Trump about this. And I feel, his political advisors, yeah, he's got to listen to that's the job of a leader. That is the job of a leader, a president specifically. You're going to have your healthcare policy advisors. You're going to have your political advisors. You're going to have your economic advisors. His political advisors failed him. And you're going to understand what I mean more when we take a look at some of this polling in a little bit. They failed him. Sometimes the best way to support someone that you like and want to see succeed is to criticize them and challenge them. It serves nobody any good to yes them to death, to praise them on high, regardless of what happens, and then watch them fail because you did not push back. All right? And I just, there's no other way, there's no nice way to put this. He's got some people around him, including his top guy. This isn't a dig at him. I'm just making an observation. He's a data guy, but he's not a political guy. And a data guy who's solely about data is going to look at the polls right now. And he's going to run a poll and he's going to say, you know what? This many people, it's overwhelming. They want us to shut it down. They approve of you for doing it. They approve of you. So don't really worry. There's not a lot of danger here. A political guy will say, is it really going to say that a month or two from now when there's 35 million people unemployed? Is it really, or a smart political guy, is it really going to say that? Or will you be trailing in Arizona by 7 points? Right? So here we go. All right. And I'm responding here to somebody's comment. It's absolutely right. They were just wrong. At this point, and this is one of the biggest dangers Donald Trump has, if he continues to sound like a politician, to repeat things like, well, if I didn't do anything, 2.5 million people would have died. That's not true. And worse, his supporters, his core supporters, they know that's not true. And the biggest disservice he could do to himself in his reelection campaign and those voters who supported him is to act like a politician. Something he said he loathed being and that he wouldn't do. He essentially took the advice and made the wrong decision because he took the advice of those very experts that he called stupid in 2016. The experts got us in forever wars. The experts did this. They did TARP bailout. They did that. The experts don't know what they're talking about. Common sense. We don't need expert elitism. We need everyday common sense. That's why Donald Trump won. Unfortunately, I completely agree with the comments right now. This is a matter now of long-term damage. If you have kids, then you know, and they've lost their school year. And a lot of these states aren't even talking about summer camps. You got Cuomo. He's out of his mind. He is completely postal. And then what are we going to do in the fall? We have a lot of these states saying, fall's going to have to be revisited. If we return, it will be something different. And that, quite frankly, is fine. But children are not designed. They're developing. They're growing. They are not designed to be locked up in the home like this. Take them for a walk if you want to see what I'm talking about. Take them for a walk in the sunshine after they've been locked up for weeks and weeks. And then you'll see what I'm talking about. And at this point, some of these, and I'm trying to respond to you guys and react to you guys. I want this to be more of a conversation kind of platform. I really do. They are, in the end, because this is an ahistorical event, I will concede that it is possible that he could buck history. It's still very early. And we're going to look at polls in a couple of minutes. We're in about 5 minutes or so, maybe less. Maybe I'll jump in there earlier because last minute I got this morning, that poll I was telling you about, it's embargoed till 10:30. I got that this morning. They messaged it out to me this morning. So that's added to the agenda today. So maybe I can start a little bit early. But Democrats know, the media know, or all the smart ones anyway. Most political reporters aren't that smart. But the politicians and those who give them their advice. The people who run these crazy kooky models, they know what I had been telling you for years. It almost doesn't matter, almost didn't matter what Donald Trump's approval rating was going to be now or running up until the election. If a president goes into re-election with 2.5, 3.5, this year could have been a banging year. Housing, we talked about yesterday, that was the fourth cylinder for this economy. Under Trump, he had the strongest labor market. He had production was coming back. Everything was changing. Retail sales, consumer spending was stronger. Those brick and mortar retail sales stores that everybody under Obama said were just dead and gone, they were coming back. Numbers we hadn't seen. Home builder sentiment through the roof, just waiting to pop off. And it ended December 2019 at nearly the all-time high, went into 2020 at a 20-year high. This year could have been gangbuster if he went into this re-election with 3% or roughly 3% GDP growth. Come September, October, when people are making that decision, do I want to rock the boat? Do I want to take a chance on somebody else when this guy, my life is good right now? They would have said no. That is what history shows us over and over. It almost didn't matter. His approval rating would have went up from, in some polls, the low 40s to probably around 47 to 49%, and he would have won re-election. I'm not saying it's over. It's early, but I am saying now they knew that. That was his Achilles heel, and they sliced it with this thing. They sliced it with it. So basically, Donald Trump is, though, my basic point here, Donald Trump is the history trend bucker. And if anyone can do it, it's him. This isn't a historical event, but what I've been telling everybody is going to happen, which is that as long as they trust him on the economy more, if you ask people, who do you trust more to bring this thing back from, historic depression numbers? Who do you trust more? If they continue to say Donald Trump, then he had a shot. But in all likelihood, history tells us that lead was going to fade over time. And it's 3 minutes, guys. Hurry up and put this out. You know what? I'm going to look at the Change.org poll to tee up. Hurry up and put this out over there. All right. They know who I'm talking to. Publish this thing already. It's 10:28. All right. And you're going to see where I'm going with this. But let's look at this poll from Change.org, which is for CNBC. Okay. This is an interesting poll. I find this interesting. And people yesterday, when the Arizona poll came out, everybody said to me, well, does that matter? Can you break this down for me? And it came on the heels of a CNN poll, which showed Trump up by 7 in the battleground states, even though he was down by 7 nationally. And the questions I was getting, and yeah, the Dow's up here today. This is good. We'll have a little market break. The questions I was getting yesterday were all along the lines of, does it really matter anymore? Do national polls really matter anymore? The census is being conducted this year, but the preliminary, stuff that we've gotten seems to indicate that my argument is getting stronger. Once upon a time, national polls were a leading indicator of the states. If you saw a candidate surge in the national poll, back then it wasn't even an average, but it was like Gallup would poll nationally. You'd have national media polls, but really, media polls were conducted a lot in the states, and Gallup was the standard for national polling. And if you saw a candidate start to stretch their legs in national polling, maybe pull out with a 3, 5, 7 point lead, roughly around. And some, we went over the history of that a couple of weeks ago. Then you would see the states start to follow suit. So national polling was a leading indicator of what was going on in the states. But that was when the national electorate more closely mirrored battleground states. So that really is what we're going to talk about when it comes to polling today. Look at 2016, and we're going to. And we're going to look right at the heart of this, the Rust Belt, where I am continuously telling people this is where the night can either end early or not. Because we do have states in the West undergoing demographic changes that will make it difficult for Donald Trump to either flip them or hold them. Nevada's close. It's closer than I thought it was going to be. Why? Because Trump's doing a couple of points better in Clark County. He needs about 2 to 3% more among Hispanics in Clark County to fight it to a tie, according to the latest polling. To a tie. And then he would need Washoe County to be either as good as it was for him, which Republicans have lost it over the last couple of cycles. That used to be how Republicans carried that state. He needs it to either get about as good as it was for him or even a little bit better. And that's hard to do considering how much you won independence by. Ironically, he's carrying independence by a little bit more than he did in 2016. But it really won't matter if he doesn't offset that with he needs just a few more points among Hispanics in Clark County. So it's really goes to show you how much they're hurting him by taking away the ability for him to rally, for him to conduct these rallies. Not only is it a data mining operation, but media markets. People cover it. They see you in the news. They hear those sound clips. And then they go and they want to learn a little bit more. And that's how you get people's attention. If he was able right now to go and slam and visit Clark County, then maybe he could make a play there. But Ohio Predictive Insights came out yesterday, and this poll does have Arizona in it. It showed Biden up by 7 in Arizona. I'll tell you right now, don't dismiss, they're a good polling firm, but there is no way that Donald Trump is down by 7 points in Arizona. All right, I know you guys want me to comment on this, so I'm going to comment on it. It's Maricopa. If you open up the poll, it's Maricopa. And I suspect, and they know the state, it's their state. I'm just saying, I suspect that they needed a little bit more in Maricopa or something is not particularly representative there. McSally, I think, has a very strong candidate. And nobody likes somebody who's been appointed and then loses and then has been appointed and tries to it just reeks of political favoritism. And people don't like that. They don't like it. They should have pushed Doug Ducey to run if possible, but anyway, it is what it is now. So I think she is down. And there was a story about the Team Trump and Trump himself being angry at McSally for dragging him down with her. And the story, I think it was in Politico. Yeah, I believe it was Politico. Oh, roll call. And Josh, whatever his name from National Journal says, this is a joke. Him pulling, she's pulling him down. Yes, she's pulling him down. That's why she's trailing by double digits. He's trailing by 7. That would suggest she's pulling him down, not the other way around. All right. That's basic stuff right there. That's a great example of somebody who's been around long enough who should know what he's saying is BS, but basically fabricating something so he can make it sound worse for Donald Trump. I mean, that's a perfect example. He has a very bad habit of doing that. He's been doing it since this guy came on the scene, and he's obviously had no, lessons learned, except for in 2018, he did for a minute, for a day. He did recognize correctly before abandoning it because it's not popular. He did recognize correctly that while national polls, the generic ballot was roughly on par with what it ended up being the national vote in the House, for the House. The state polls were abysmal, and we've gone over that. I'm not going to do another show about that, but they did not get any better. In fact, some of them were horrible. No, as far as I remember, no poll had Hillary Clinton winning the state of Florida by 13 points or 12 points. No poll had Hillary Clinton defeating Donald Trump in Indiana by 7 points. No poll had Hillary Clinton tying Donald Trump in Missouri. I don't remember any of that. There were some real bad bombs. University of New Hampshire in New Hampshire. And some of they had a double-digit lead for her going in there. Ended up being decided by a few thousand votes. Anyway, key things from this poll. And now that it's out, it's 10:35. Some of you will probably see the Rasmussen poll. Biden is ahead of Biden by about 5 points in the Rasmussen poll. And here, this is like the CNN poll. They give you a focus on battleground states. This one, though, CNN was 15 states. This one is Arizona, Florida, Michigan, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. All right. They sharply disagree over whether there is likely to be a second wave of the coronavirus and who to blame if there is. In a hypothetical matchup of these states, Trump narrowly leads Biden by about 2 points, 48-46. And he's got a pretty big edge, almost a 10-point edge, just under a 9-point edge among independents. That's a pretty solid edge. That's bigger than what he had in 2016. I will say this, though. A state like Florida going to be very close, where I think he's got pretty much an edge. Michigan should, if Biden's going to have a good election, Michigan really should not be that close. So that would offset some of the lead Trump has in some of these other states. I'm not sure where Biden, if Trump leads by 2, and I'm going to show you what I mean in a second. I'm going to pull up a spreadsheet and show you there in 2016 in the 6 battleground Rust Belt states, the percentage of the vote for Trump in each, the percentage of the vote for Clinton in each, and we'll compare it to the national polling to make my point. And looking at this, I'm not sure which states they're claiming is dragging Biden down. So, you know, if some of this analysis is true and Biden's going to run the table and pull some of these red states away, which state is it going to be? Because he's down collectively in all of these. I thought he had a 7-point lead in Arizona. No chance. But I thought he had a 7-point lead in Arizona. He's going to lose Florida. I mean, even if Donald Trump loses this election, nobody knows Florida better than me. End of story. Mic drop. When you get it right for 3 cycles in a row, when everybody else doesn't, then speak to me about this. Then come back and try to compare yourself to me. But you don't. You don't have the record yet. Michigan, again, if it's a good election for Biden, like everybody's saying it's going to be already, then that should be dragging Trump down here. I mean, he won Arizona by about 7.66 something. He won Florida by 1.2. He won Michigan by 10,000 votes. He won Pennsylvania by 30,000 votes. He won Wisconsin by 40,000 votes, all 3 under 1%. And he won North Carolina by nearly 4%. About 3.6, I think it was 3.8. So where is Biden winning so big here that he's dragging Trump down to 2 when all of these states were that close? All right. And that's what I'm going to show you with the Rust Belts in a minute. I'm not sure where this is coming from. If he's at 48% in these states collectively, then I see, at least right now, I see a much closer race than what people are suggesting. And it's early. It's very early. But it's going to be very hard for Joe Biden to win North Carolina. I don't know if you guys have seen the study. Barack Obama did carry North Carolina in 2008 by a few hundred votes. And there are credible university studies to indicate he did so on the back of illegal immigrants voting. That was before they implemented some of those voter ID laws, some of those other laws that would prevent that now. It's going to be very difficult. Even Romney took back North Carolina. And then Trump won it by an even bigger margin. All right. So this is a big poll, by the way. 5,408 likely voters. That's a big poll. That is a nice size poll for only 6 battleground states. And we're doing, the reason I want to show you the Rust Belt is twofold. Like I said, I really think it's utter importance. And then 2, a media company, which I hope to be able to bring you soon. A media company came to me and said, we want to do something different this year. We want you to poll, but we want something different that nobody else has. That is tracked consistently, at least once a month. What would you do if you had free reign and you wanted to do something cool? What would you do? So my idea to them was to take those 6 Rust Belt states, one of which, by the way, was not even considered a battleground state in 2016, except by me, who wrote about it and had Hillary Clinton's lead at just over 2 points. She won by just under 2 points. And I told them the Rust Belt, do the Rust Belt. And then over time, as we track, we'll build up big enough samples. And that's what this thing is that I'm going to show you. I'm going to give sampling guidelines, a big data poll. We have minimal samples for everything. Florida, you cannot conduct a poll in Florida with 400 votes, 400 responses. It is not going to be a good poll. We oversample Florida all the time for all the reasons that I've told you ad nauseum for weeks. There it is. Each racial demographic has sub-racial demographics. And you will need to poll them all. You better get a good representative sample of them all. Or you might come out with Biden +5 like we saw yesterday with somebody. Joe Biden is not going to win the state of Florida by 5 points. Not happening. It's too close, and Republicans have a decided edge in the state of Florida. It is not a big edge, but it is a decided edge. It's a turnout edge, and even in strong Democrat national moods, they have not been able to translate that into a big enough swing with independents that they wind up carrying the state and overtaking that electorate edge. Right now, Democrats have the smallest registration advantage since 1972 in Florida, since they started tracking partisan statistics in the voter registrations. They're just not going to have the edge that John Kerry enjoyed, and he lost. They're not going to have the edge that Al Gore enjoyed, and he lost. They're definitely not going to have the 800,000 plus voter registration edge they enjoyed for Barack Obama in 2008. And they're definitely not going to have that edge that they enjoyed in 2012, which was about 500 and something thousand votes. Not going to happen. They're in the twos right now. They're in the twos. And Amendment 4 is not exactly going as people suggested it would. All right. So this has a sampling error. This is not a correct term here, folks. You know that. Margin of error, especially considering it's a change research poll and how they collect their data collection modes that they use. This is the better phrase is sampling error. It probably, I'd have to look at it more, but it probably shouldn't even have one. It should have a confidence interval, but whatever. Margin, beware of the term margin of error. There are too many data collection modes in this day and age. Beware of that term. It is sampling error. Just like it's not oversampled, it's overrepresented, right? These terms get thrown out incorrectly. It's unbelievable. But anyway, so the data sheds new light on the battle between President Donald Trump and former Vice President Joe Biden, which is being waged in the shadow of the worst public health crisis in living memory. God, that was extravagant. Some of the data in the survey is good news for the president. In a hypothetical matchup, Trump holds a 48-46 lead over Biden among all the battleground voters surveyed, including 41% to 32% lead among independents. He also leads Biden 51-40 in who would do a better job in handling the economy. This is a big deal. The two are in a statistical tie over who would do a better job handling the coronavirus. Both of these are big deals. The latter, because this is why Democrats want to keep this thing going forever. They are praying for a second phase in the fall, a second wave. They're praying for it. That's horrible. I know. It's a horrible thing to say, but it's true. So get over it. This right here, though, is different than what the Rasmussen poll today found, which was sent to me just early this morning. So I didn't have much of a chance to really pick through it. But they hit me with it right before I was going on the show, about an hour. And show prep is done in advance of that. So it's hard to kind of sneak something in at the last minute. But they show that Biden has taken the lead on the question of who do you trust more to bring jobs back, to navigate this thing and bring jobs back. They may be an outlier here. It is possible. It's also a national poll. This one is in the battlegrounds. But even nationally, Trump better hold that lead. And I'm interested to see, it's going to be interesting to see whether or not other polls, national polls, confirm whether or not Biden is taking the lead on that question. because that's all Donald Trump. Number one, see like episode 26, presidential justifications. This goes to the very heart of Donald Trump's justification, that he was the man for the job right now. He is the man for this time. That is the justification for those of you who did not see that episode. This went right to the heart of that for him. He has to keep it. It's not even a question. He has got to keep it. And again, why I say that having a data guy, maybe without at least, data only, without political experience, having someone like that at the helm while you're making these decisions without somebody who's experienced in what I'm talking about right now. There are a lot of smart people out there who understand what I mean when I say presidential justification. That is what builds the narrative of a presidential election cycle. That if it is a choice election, that is what you look back on. Hindsight is 2020. Go back and look at the exit poll results. Who do you trust to bring about change? That was the narrative of that. That was the choice of that election. He doesn't really understand that, apparently, because if he did, he would have been on his hands and knees begging the president not to do what he did. Don't do it, sir. Don't do it. It's going to cost you your election, or at least it very well could. Don't do it. Here's why. Bing, 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 bing. But he didn't. That's what I mean when I say they failed him on this. He's got to hold this lead. The two are in a statistical tie over who would do a better job of handling coronavirus. Okay. Among both Democrats and independents, the most common word used in responses to the survey was incompetent. In contrast, Republicans used words like good, great, best, and excellent. The survey results showed, though, that independents are far more likely than Trump to be concerned about the potential second wave in coronavirus infections, and they will blame Trump if it does. First of all, I don't know what this means. This is a terrible way. There should be no bias. I should not be able to read any article about a poll that a media outlet has commissioned to have conducted. I should not be able to read any bias between the lines at all. What the hell are you talking about? They're far more likely than Trump to be concerned. The hell do you know what Trump is concerned about? Are you in his mind? This is garbage. Stick to the numbers. You paid 10 to 20 grand for a poll so you could write what you think? It's about what they think. Who cares what you think? Who cares how you interpret things? You're not in the man's mind. You don't know him. I hate that crap. Stick to the poll. Anyway, this is the results on second wave worries, which is why it's really important that he deals with this correctly. But what I mean by that is by the time, if there is a second wave, by the time it comes around, the economy better have their e-tool digging itself out. Because, number one, we simply won't be able to handle the mitigation efforts. So the idea we could go ahead and close down again, the economic damage will be grave, and that will be all she wrote for tens of millions of jobs. It'll be all she wrote for Donald Trump's reelection chances. Shutting down again in September, October is not an option. We are already in it is. It's always an option. If you want to be stupid, it simply can't be done. So if he leaves it open because he's smart enough to understand depressions kill too, if he wants to leave it open and all these deaths come rolling in, who are they going to blame? They're going to blame him. And it's going to be easy to blame. He's got a tightrope to walk here, folks. Donald Trump is walking on a tightrope to re-election. He is. And, just being realistic about it here. All right, so 71% of Republicans think that things are going to get better. Only 12% of Democrats and 35% of independents think the same. while 2/3 of Democrats and 42% of independents thinking things are going to get worse. Look, Democrats are going to say what Democrats are going to say. Nearly 8 in 10 say they have very serious concerns about coronavirus, while only 1 in 10 Republicans think the same. You could tell Democrats the data, like I do on Twitter, over and over and over until you are blue in the face. Everything that Democrats respond to these days is partisan. Even the survey of consumers during the time when things were booming and we were at all-time highs, we were enjoying the greatest length of economic expansion since the mid-1800s. And Democrats were still 40 points below Republicans and independents on average with how they rated their personal situation. It doesn't really matter. They're going to say what they're going to say. Those views are consistent with the partisan divide about a second wave. Of course it is. You know what? I'm not even going to really go into this. This is a little crap right here. This is it's a waste of breath outside of me correcting it. Asian nations have already experienced an uptick in infections that in some cases have caused authorities to reimpose restrictions. It is true in northern China. They are locking things down. There is an outbreak in northern China. However, you can look to a place like Australia. Northern China is not experiencing our weather patterns. They don't the same way. You can look at Australia right now, which I know somebody like Dr. Mark Siegel has pointed out already. They are in what essentially is our fall, and they are not experiencing that. They have at present time, I think, or it was when I looked maybe a day or so ago, 11 cases. 11. That's it. They went strict in the beginning, but then they opened right back up again. China was a lot different. They invented the economic lockdown. China invented the pandemic lockdown. China did it. First nation ever to do it. And they somehow, on the cheap, with the help of our complacent, idiotic, ideologically corrupt media, they got the rest of the Western world to do what a totalitarian regime does. So maybe that has something to do with it. Considering the highest category for infections and outbreaks is, everybody say it with me, indoor transmissions. Indoor transmissions. Right? So, all right. That's that. You guys can barely see that. I didn't even notice that at first, but there is the Rasmussen poll that I'd like to bring up. And I'm going to do that in a second here. But you know what? I'll read you the, here we go. Let's see. I'm reading you what they flat out emailed me, all right? So Joe Biden still best Donald Trump in a head-to-head matchup, perhaps in part because voters expressed slightly more confidence in the likely Democratic nominee to handle the post-coronavirus economy. Biden earns 48% support among U.S. likely voters to Trump's 43%. 8% remain undecided. This marks little change from Biden's 48 to 42 advantage in early March. Trump beat Biden 47 to 43 in last September. Of course, that was before all of this crap and nonsense. Donald Trump was going to trounce Joe Biden if this coronavirus pandemic didn't come. Or not even, but if it didn't come and we didn't do these and we did not decide to do these lockdowns. There is no one you can find anywhere, not at 538, whom we usually don't mention here, but I'm doing it for this purpose. Not at CNN with Chris Aliza, not at the University of Virginia Center for Politics, either Larry or Kyle. There is no political forecaster, no matter how left-wing they are, that can find you an incumbent president who was defeated with 3% GDP growth. Oh, wait, they're not there. This is kind of a trick question. It's not there. You will not find one. It didn't matter. So I'm telling you, if this didn't happen, Joe Biden was going to get trounced. When asked which candidate would do a better job bringing the country back economically from the coronavirus, 47% said Biden, 44% said Trump, 9% are unsure. The Change poll is largely conducted. I don't know if they offer other survey methods, but largely change.org is a panel poll. And I can't help but to wonder if now there is a panel component in Rasmussen. They do 20%. And then 80% is interactive voice response to landlines. And I can't help but to wonder some of the slippage is weird things going on out there. Trump, his base, in 2016, largely seniors. I can't help but to wonder if some of Donald Trump's slippage among seniors is causing that weirdness in the Rasmussen poll, or at least the variance with the economy on the economic question, because they're right there with everybody else in the actual national number. But I can't help but to wonder if that's it, if that maybe is what's going on here, because some of these other polls, including Change and CNN for sure, is finding something very different when you look at younger voters and even basically working voters that are below the age of 54. Even voters below the age of 35. Donald Trump was leading Joe Biden. That includes the 18 to 29 category because they lump them together. They lumped them together. But it tells you that Donald Trump's got an increase in support among voters who are 35, period, 35 below. And he's got a decrease in support among seniors. That could be a problem, though, a little bit, because as Democrats have an issue with relying on younger voter support, seniors vote more, they're more reliable. If they vote in heavy margins for you, it could offset some of the other damage that comes from other age groups that Democrats traditionally carry. So I'm wondering if that's what's going on there. I really don't know, because I'm going to have to pull this myself and find out. And I'm going to do that soon, folks, all right? Because I get this all the time and people want me to comment on other polls that people do. It's very difficult for me to really be able to be honest and comment or gauge somebody else's work if I don't see the data set. If I don't see the raw data set, then it's difficult for me to do that. I could take the raw data set. I don't know if some of you remember this. Maybe some of you do, some of you don't. But the RAND poll, which turned into, it was the RAND in 2012, and it turned into the USC LA Times poll in 2016. You would always be able every day to go and take their CSV data and look at their actual data set. Also, very great report. I think it was Nate Cohen who did it, the New York Times, before 2012. And I think it was Florida, North Carolina, a couple battleground states. And he was making the point I'm trying to make right now. If you give 4 or 5 pollsters the same data set, they could come up with the same result, or they could come up with very different results. In the case that he showed, every single pollster had very different results. And 3 out of 4, I think it was, had Hillary Clinton leading Donald Trump in like every state that he gave him, and only 1 had Trump leading. It goes to show you, like, I could take Ohio Predictive Insights, actual raw data. I could go to a company I use called MarketSite, a great company. That's who builds our crosstabs. I take a literal Excel file when I collect all of the responses. Each question is a column. This is some level of stuff I'm telling you right now you're not going to hear anywhere else. When I export the responses, whether I'm taking it from the online panel, or I'm taking it from interactive voice response, or I'm taking it from live caller, those come in spreadsheets or CSV files. The columns on the CSV file are the questions, which we use and turn into variables. All right. Demographics and choices are also variables. The rows are each respondent. So you'll have respondent, ID, blah, 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 blah. It is a male or a female. Their age is 34, whatever it may be, or, in the 18 or whatever category, 18 to 29, 30 to 45, whatever it may be in the column, whatever choice you have to answer that question in the column, like age, gender. In the row, will give you each individual respondents. And then I will take that. That is all of it together, if it's multiple modes of collection, whether it's online panel or interactive voice response, they're collected. The data mode is marked. This came from an online panel. This came from interactive voice response. This was a live caller interview. They picked up on their cell phone. They picked up on their landline, whatever it may be, even down to whether or not you took the survey on an iMac, a MacBook Pro, an iPhone, an iPad, a Samsung device, Microsoft, whatever, Windows Phone. We even know that. It all gets put together. It is a raw data set. Then it is uploaded into whatever they use. People use different. There's other great companies out there. Displayer is another great company. I love Displayer because I could make little figures of men and women. And so I could show you how much is male, how much is female. And I could fill it up like a jar of water, like a jar of soda, or whatever, a glass of soda or something. And I can make it like cool graphics, to show clients. But generally speaking, with charts and crosstabs, I use MarketSite. And I could upload the same data set that Mike at Ohio Predictive Insights has, that he got, and he found Biden +7. And I could find Biden +1, +2. It really is hard for me to comment on what they did if I don't know the difference between what they did and what I would have done. All I can do is look and say, all right, Maricopa County represents this much of the vote share. But if it was me polling, I'd know exactly what precincts in Maricopa County those respondents came from. So I'll know whether or not I got a good enough representation of the county itself. We don't see that when these people release those polls. We just don't see it. It's a damn shame because they should, but we don't see it. So it's hard for me to say, yeah, well, I would have done this differently. I would have done that differently. I'll tell you right now, it is almost unheard of in a state like Arizona to find a Democrat with that kind of lead. I feel like you must have done something wrong. I'm just saying that. And I'm not, this is not a dig at them. I just feel, or maybe not wrong, just something different. That gap in Maricopa County was huge. Donald Trump won Maricopa by 5. Sinema barely won it. That's how she won the state. She flipped Maricopa County. She is the only Democratic candidate in decades to win Maricopa County on a state level. It's historic. It was historic. The idea that Biden would be leading Donald Trump there by 15 points is a little bit crazy to me. That's nuts. If we polled Maricopa County, my knee jerk, my gut instinct is telling me it would probably be around maybe Biden by anywhere to 2, 3, to Trump to 6 or 7. I'd have to do it. And we are going to do it, is my point. And when we come back from the break, we're going to go over the Rust Belt, like I was telling you guys about. We'll show you the difference between what the vote shares were in these states. And I don't mean how much did they win of the vote. I mean, how much of the vote share did that vote make up? And then how should that be weighted for a national polling? And can it even be done anymore? Or does California and New York and Illinois and the District of Columbia, are they just now so one-sided that it's difficult for a national poll to be predictive of the Electoral College? And we'll talk about that when we get back. All right, listen, it is 11:04. You're watching Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. I'm going to shoot out. You know what? Here, I'll even talk to you guys while I'm doing it. You need to subscribe to YouTube. There you go. Here's the link. Somebody asked me for it. I want this to be a more interactive thing, and we're going to do it like that from now on. All right, so it is 11:04, folks, on Wednesday, May 20th. You're watching Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. I am the People's Pundit, Rich Barish. You can follow me on Twitter at Peoples_Pundit. And if you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to subscribe. I just blasted out the YouTube link. If you're watching on Facebook, then don't forget to like the page People's Pundit Daily. We've been doing great with getting up our marks. YouTube, that channel's been there, but neglected. We never did anything with it. Now that we have the show, we are. And Facebook, too, was generally neglected. Twitter was our space, which is why, it's such a larger following on Twitter than we do anywhere else. And we got to try to even that out a little bit. So don't forget to like the page before you leave, or go do it now if you haven't already. Even if you watch on YouTube, if you are a Facebook user, don't forget to like the page, People's Pundit Daily. And then, of course, the ultimate way to support this show is to subscribe to People's Pundit Daily. And you can do that by going with the short link to ppdnews.us/subscribe. ppdnews.us/subscribe. And I just want to thank everybody for doing that, because you have, and we love you for it. And we will absolutely be adding a lot more to this show. And we started to today, now that I have my great partner in crime, Laura, to help me. All right, then it's not going to be the skeleton crew. Things are starting to open up around here again. Thank God we live in a state that is. So it's a lot different. And we will do as promised. We will add a lot more bells and whistles, a lot more graphics, and it's going to be cool. I'm really excited over it. All right. I'm going to take a quick break. And when we come back from this quick break, then we will go over the Susan. Well, actually, before we do that, I will go over Mike Garcia and tell you how Mike Garcia defeated Christy Smith the way that he did, and why it is so damn important. And I told you guys never to ignore or neglect a result, whether it was good for you or not. Don't get complacent. Don't, cast polls and results aside. This was a special election. It's nothing. This was something. We got some of his campaign data, and it's legit, and it matters. And we'll talk about that on the other side of the break. I'm going to play some music. I told you guys, if you know anybody local, not local, but anybody who's an inspiring artist that want to be showcased, we will do that, because we want people to get exposure. We don't want to support the biggins. We want to support the littleins and make them biggins, and we'll help do it. Look, this is the Bowen Band, and I'll be right back. Enjoy it. And when we come back, we'll hit up Garcia. Then we'll get to Russia and Susan Rice's new email. All the best. I'll see you in a hot minute, okay?
You wanna bet that I can get you back inside your head before the summer ends, and spread a little love. Just for a little fun, I'll make you come back to me before the rise of every sun. Baby, it's meant to be. I know you got a man, but he don't understand. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. There's rhythm in our love, it's impressive, excessive. You can't make this stuff up. My chest beats, it's restless, wakes the neighbors up above. Yeah, baby, come and show me love. Baby, come and show me love. Because you're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
Take a one-way ride, steal us away to find a place we can hide. It wouldn't take much to spear for a knife, just to give in to the need and leave it all behind.
'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. 'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me
That is the Grammy balloted band Bowen out of Mystic, Connecticut, I think. Let me get that right because you guys should know that. I love that song. This guy, I'm like, I heard it. I'm like, Chris, I'm taking your song. That's my theme song, buddy. I'm taking it. Great guy, great musician, and it's killer. So if we'll always leave you guys those in the in the YouTube thing and everything. We'll put that in there so you guys can go and find whatever music we play on here, right? That's the point. All right, and if you know it, like I said, let us know. If you have somebody in mind, send it to contact@peoplespunditdaily, and we will do that. All right. We'll review it. I can't promise you we'll put it up, but we actually got a couple already. Can't promise you we'll put it up, but we will. I can promise you I'll listen to it, and if it's good, I'll do it. And outro music will be the same as the theme, but I'll play stuff during the breaks. All right. So I'm getting bugged to read some of your questions. All right. So let me just do Garcia. Then I'll go and we'll have a little interactive moment and I'll get into your questions. But I just want to, and I can do this real quick. Garcia had campaign data that started making its way around after this. I told you that margin would tighten. It did tighten. And when I got this, it was about 10 points or so. It tightened, and I would expect, I would have expected this thing to tighten a lot more. This is why it was called so early. I told you guys the day after the election. And then when we got I think it was after the show that day, we got a couple thousand more votes, but it's where they came from that mattered. And they came from the burbs in LA County where Democrats usually do very well. And they walk out of there with 55% of the vote with independents. He walked out with 52% of the vote. And I was wondering, is this going to hold? Is this good? Because if it is, this thing is over. Republicans don't win races out there by winning independents. They win races by having a registration edge and then not losing them so much that whatever margin they do take of independents is enough to get them to 50% plus one vote. Garcia what he did is noteworthy. He didn't just win independents, he won Hispanics, which is incredible out there. It's a big deal. And I don't know if it's candidate centered. He was thought to be a mediocre candidate. He turned out to be a fantastic candidate, really fantastic. And in the end, he made his case to those voters. Why does it matter? And this is why when we saw the independent numbers, we did know he was going to do good among Hispanics, because I don't know if I still have this uploaded. This is the older one, but this was the returned ballots before it was updated one more time before the vote was held on election day, or counted, really. I mean, we had a couple precincts that were open that were supposed to help the Democrat. These precincts were supposed to be Christy Smith precincts, but it turned out not so good for her. But this is generally the trend that we saw going in. Here is what we have demographically. All right. And as you could see, ethnics down at the very bottom, Latinos were 17% of the vote. Whites were 34%, and Asians were 29%. The independent vote here is not really an independent vote, or not typically and not historically. It is a left-leaning, I don't want to register with the Democratic Party vote. That's what it is. That's the truth. And yet, Mike Garcia was able to take up, take these voters that there's no, after doing the numbers, of course, the numbers were not as big as, a traditional cycle, but they were big enough for us to be able to look at them and say, you know what? Mike Garcia won voters that Katie Hill won. That's almost a certainty. Not almost. I mean, it's a certainty. So maybe some of that had to do with Katie Hill's scandal. Maybe, as we talked about that day, a lot had to do with the blowback from the headlines that said LA County would extend their lockdown. Maybe. In the end, I don't know if you followed the story or not, but they raced away from that headline. There's no, we didn't mean it like that. It's not as bad as it sounds. What we're going to do is not as bad as it sounds. But it was too late. A lot of votes were cast already. A lot of ballots were returned already. And a lot of minds were made up already. And that is what happened here. And Garcia did better than we thought by about 4 points with independents, which is a big deal. It doesn't sound like a lot, but we thought, being a bad cycle for Democrats, Christy Smith would probably win not the traditional 55 plus, but maybe about 52%, which would be enough if Garcia kept that edge that he had going in. That it was when we talked on the show that day, it was about 13 points. Then we got the final ballot update, the return ballot update before counting votes. And it went from 13 to 14 edge for Republicans. Democrats did increase their share of return ballots, but Republicans just increased theirs more. And independents actually ticked up when there was like two dumps. One was small, but it changed things. In the beginning, independents ticked down a little bit, but then they went up a few points. I think it was 2 or 3 points. Historically speaking, you would have thought that would have been bad for Mike Garcia. But what happened was the exact opposite. In the end, he carried those votes. So that change helped him. And it's something. I mean, it matters. It's definitely something. And then I will say this one more word about Wisconsin 7. Democrats will fight like hell, and Mike Garcia better campaign to keep that seat if he wants to keep it. He better continue campaigning right now. Right now. I know he got sworn into Congress yesterday, along with Tom Tiffany in Wisconsin 7. Nancy Pelosi had to swear them in. You should have seen, I don't know if you saw it, but you should see her face. She always tries to make it like, oh, I'm so happy for you guys. I'm so happy for all of you. Yeah, come on, raise your right hand. Meanwhile, inside, she's like, I hate you. She looked miserable. Every single one of them was one more seat away from her losing that gavel, and she knows it. Mike Garcia is now the only Republican representative in the U.S. House of Representatives to represent a district that Hillary Clinton won. There are Democrats, that's because they had a decent 2018 midterm cycle. There are Democrats, however, that still represent districts that Donald Trump won in 2016. And she knows that. It's almost to the point, after seeing that result from Garcia, because there are several districts in California that are more Republican than California 25. So they know, they can go on TV and try to dismiss it all they want. Even if they take 25 back, they may lose others, because that is significantly, and when I say that, I mean 10 points less Republican than some of these other districts. 6 to 10. If you look at about 3 to 4 other of those districts, they're 6 to 10 points more Republican. That doesn't necessarily mean that Republicans are going to come in and blow out those, Democrats by 15, 20 points, 16, 20 points. That doesn't mean that, because that race in 25 will tighten in all likelihood in California 25. But it does mean that Republicans very well could take back several of those seats that they lost in 2018 that are more Republican than California 25. And they know that. So we're in a position now. We're in this weird, 6 months, 7 months, very long time in politics. But right now we're in this strange position where everybody thinks Joe Biden's going to mop the floor with Donald Trump. And that would mean that Republicans' majority in the Senate is in trouble, because Doug Jones is going to lose. He's done. But you have people that they think are finished, like Susan Collins in Maine. I'm not at all convinced of that. I polled her once. It was years ago. But she was very, very popular. I know she's not as popular as she is now, but she's also a moderate and the kind of Republican that Maine has reelected overwhelmingly before. So I'm not convinced of that, though. Clearly, she's vulnerable. Cory Gardner is in deep trouble, and McSally is in deep, deep trouble. McSally should be in a better position than Cory Gardner, and she's not. Joni Ernst is not. It would have to be an extremely bad election for Joni Ernst to lose that seat. I can tell you right now, confidently, because I know, and I've done it myself. Maybe I'll get permission to show you. Maybe I'll ask for permission to show you. Joni Ernst is in a good spot in Iowa. I've seen other polls. I know it. Donald Trump's about 10 points ahead in Iowa right now, and Joni Ernst is about 8 points ahead. She's in a good spot. It would have to be a cataclysmic result for Republicans for Joni Ernst to lose that seat. But that means, let's say McSally loses. Let's say Gardner holds on. He's the kind of candidate who can, he's a good candidate, but he also could also be like a Dean Heller. But let's say he holds on hypothetically, and let's say Susan Collins loses. Actually, give them Colorado. Give Democrats Colorado. And Doug Jones, though, he's done. Tommy Tuberville is going to beat Doug Jones. He's finished. Over. It's a wrap. And he knows it, which is why his vote to impeach really didn't matter. He acted like he was agonizing over this decision. Guy's so full of crap. He turned to his pollster and said, "What's my shot? You're finished. All right, I'll stick with the party." That's he's done. Doug Jones is done. So that means Democrats would basically net 2, which would put Republicans basically, the upper chamber would be an even chamber. And you would have the House of Representatives. Like I said, it's weird where we're headed here. Looking at some of these elections, there are a lot of vulnerable Democrats in the House of Representatives, and they do not need 29 seats, which is the number of districts that voted for Donald Trump, currently represented by a Democrat. They don't need that. With Garcia, and there's Jeff Van Drew, who switched, they need a little over a baker's dozen. That's it. So we could be in a position where, and old school American electorates used to like to do this. They used to like to check power. So they would say, under Obama, he killed the phenomenon known as ticket splitting because he polarized this country so much. We did an article on that too on People's Pundit Daily. If you just type in ticket splitting, it's going to come right up. And you'll see the trend over years, going back many years. And yes, Americans used to ticket split throughout the 70s, the 80s, the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, even though Democrats controlled the lower chamber for a long time. Generally speaking, there were a lot of ticket splitting going on. And then under Obama, we got to about 90% non-ticket splits, and above that. And then in 2016, we hit 100% for the first time ever, which means if the state voted, a ticket split means if the state voted for a Republican president, they also voted for a Democratic senator. But there were no ticket splits. If they voted for the Republican candidate for president in 2016, they voted for the Republican candidate for U.S. Senate at a 100% rate. Prior to that, it was in the 90s. It grew in the 90s under Obama. He did that, polarizing the country. In 2018, we saw, not because we don't have a president on the ballot, so it's a little difficult, but we did see some ticket splits. Think Ohio. Republicans put up a very poor candidate in Ohio, and people are going to do this to me again. Renacci, I don't even know. I mean, that's how much. We pulled it once. Josh Mandel was going to wipe the floor with Sherrod Brown. He was going to wipe the floor with him. And he had to leave I actually know the story. I'm not going to blow the man's personal story up. But I got a friend who's very, very close to him. I'm not going to blow his story up. But he left for family reasons. That seat was his for the taking. And the governor's race eventually, even though not a single poll, getting back to 2018 again, because you're going to see these doozies, not a single poll in the final 3 months leading up to Election Day had Mike DeWine beating Richard Cordray. There was a NBC Marist poll in the summer that had DeWine up by small single digits. I think it was 1 or 2 points. I think it was low single digits. And then in the end, they wound up herding with the crowd, with the cattle. And they showed a lead for Richard Cordray. Obviously, Mike DeWine won that election. He won it pretty handily. But Sherrod Brown held on. So that was a ticket split. In Florida, it was a straight ticket vote. And it was Republican. except for one split down the agricultural commissioner's seat, went for a Democrat for the first time in decades. And there are a lot of people who make a really good case that Broward took that away from Republicans. You know how I feel about that, folks. You got to win beyond that margin. You have got to win beyond that margin. You can't. If you lost by a few thousand votes, it means you didn't do a good enough job convincing people. I just don't like the fraud. I don't like the fraud rapping. And there's fraud. There is fraud. There is. And sometimes it's on both sides. Not always, but look at North Carolina. Special election in North Carolina in 2018 had to be redone because of Republican fraud, not Democrat fraud. But, in the end, that we have seen some return to ticket splitting, but it's not quite there yet. We'll see. It is very common for Republicans. For Americans. Some of you would say, right, you're right, Republicans, Americans, Republicans, same thing, right? So they're synonymous. It is common. You could see, president's party win in Obama in 2012. His party did win some seats, but in the end, the American people kept the House of Representatives in control of the Republican Party. They remained in control of the upper chamber, the Democrats. There weren't that many Republican seats on the map, though. It wasn't as target rich as it later would be in 2014, where they wiped the floor with the Democrats. But in the end, Americans thought it wise to keep Republicans in control of the lower chamber while reelecting Barack Obama. So sometimes they like to put checks on people. So maybe Donald Trump wins reelection, but Democrats keep the House and maybe make gains in the Senate, probably in all likelihood. Or maybe they elect Joe Biden and they give Republicans back the House and the margin tightens in the U.S. Senate. Americans are funny like that. The American voter, they do what they do. So it's very hard to predict their behavior, and it drives me nuts when, and even as someone who forecasts, drives me nuts when I see people on Twitter now, 7 months out, pretending they know what the hell is going to happen. They don't know. It's way too early. Do I have to go back to what I did in episode 14, which is show you almost a century, 100 years almost worth of polling data going back to Gallup, when they used to walk around with paper ballots, to show you that early polls have no predictive value. And poll readers are not going to be able to predict human behavior 7 months out, 6 months out. All right. I will hit up some. All right. I'll do it. I'm getting bugged. I'll hit up some questions, but I want to leave time to go over the Susan Rice thing. I really don't know why. You can't just let me go over the Susan Rice. You know what? I'm going to do a little break here, and then I am going to go over the Susan Rice. I'll save the end for the questions. That's the best thing to do. All right. So it is 11:28, nearly 11:29 on Wednesday, May 20th. You're watching Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. I'm the People's Pundit, Rich Barish. You guys can follow me on Twitter at Peoples_Pundit, right there in the bottom of the screen. And if you are watching on YouTube, do not forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel and give us that thumbs up and turn on your little notifications bell, which about 85% of our subscribers have done, which is fantastic. If you are watching on Facebook, don't forget to like the page, People's Pundit Daily. And then if you do one or either, then it will notify you before the show. This way you guys can, put it up on your browser or on your television, and you can wait for it to come on instead of trying to race there at the, very last minute. Scopers, give us the hearts and follow the account, whether you're watching it on mine or on People's Pundit Daily. But I'll tell you, the best thing to do is to grab the YouTube link that we tweet out and head on over to YouTube, watch it there, or on Facebook Live, because the quality is much better on YouTube and on Facebook Live. It's flawless. Whereas Scope, especially with everybody home, it lags a lot. So who wants to deal with that? And we get a lot of Scope viewers, a lot of them. Go to YouTube, all right? And I'll send out the link in a little bit. But as always, the best way to support the show of course, is to subscribe to People's Pundit Daily, which you can do by going to ppdnews.us/subscribe. ppdnews.us/subscribe. And thank you for to all who have done that. We love you for it. And that's why you're going to see more bells and whistles, like I told you would, beginning this week, because we have some really cool stuff. And honestly, I have fun doing this, and I have fun playing with it. Every time we get a new tool, it's like awesome, And then yesterday, it's just the production's fun, but I can't be the one to do it. So it's good to have help. And now that things are calming down and getting back a little bit to normal, I can have that help. All right. So, well, you guys, let's look at the Rice memo. All right. So right before Susan Rice, and let me give some background here. Susan Rice is the former national security advisor under Barack Obama. And she was before that ambassador to the United Nations, U.S. ambassador to the UN. You will remember her most notably for her now infamous run around on Sunday on the various Sunday shows. I think it was no less than 4 or 5 Sunday shows after the attack on the consulate in Benghazi and the CIA annex, which cost the life of Ambassador Stevens and American contractors, 2 American contractors, and a State Department employee. It later became obviously known as a terror attack, which it was obvious from the beginning. But she went on those Sunday shows, bald-faced lied. We now know she was lying and knew she was lying. We know from emails that have been released, and said that the attacks, which were clearly organized militant attacks with shelling, were really nothing more than a protest that devolved into essentially like a riot/attack, which was a result of a scam YouTube video. I'm not even going to name it, which was a joke. It was a Western video, that was put up on YouTube that mocked the Prophet Muhammad. That, of course, was complete and utter BS. It was a lie. It was not true. Protesters don't bring mortars to the protests. It was a well-organized. These men, like Tonto, former Army Ranger, another one, a former Navy SEAL. They know what it takes to coordinate, plan, coordinate, and execute an attack like that with that kind of weaponry. They know what it takes. It was not a protest. We also know from emails that they knew right away. I mean, Hillary Clinton, in the WikiLeaks dump, you can read it. Hillary Clinton told her daughter that night. I mean, it was a fraud. So Susan Rice had the distinguished title of being the biggest, worst, most egregious liar in the District of Columbia, which is hell of an accomplishment, really saying something. Until that is Representative Adam Schiff, who now, God save us, is the chairman of the Intelligence Committee in the House of Representatives. Until that, claiming to have evidence of collusion, claiming to have evidence that the duly elected president of the United States was in fact a Russian traitor who worked with a foreign hostile power to subvert our democracy. We have gone over this numerous times now. There isn't even evidence that Russia or a Russian entity removed anything from the DNC server. Of course, making a claim like that, I have to put it up to show. Here we are. Stewart of Utah. Okay, what about the emails that everyone is so, knowledgeable? Were there also indicators that they were prepared, but not evidence that they were actually exfiltrated? And CrowdStrike President Sean Henry, the company that everybody, including Robert Mueller, relied on for this whole dogma, unchallenged truth that Russia took the emails off of the DNC server, to which Mr. Henry responds, there's not evidence that they were actually exfiltrated. There's circumstantial evidence. When pressed by Stewart, He says, but no evidence that they were actually exfiltrated. And then he goes on to try to say that it's possible somebody could have read it. It's possible somebody could have read it. Maybe they took screenshots. Of course, that's a load of crap, because in those emails that were given to WikiLeaks were attachment documents, images, files, everything that were original attachments. You cannot do that by taking a damn screenshot. It's ludicrous, insulting to your intelligence. Don't let them insult your intelligence. Don't let them assume you're that stupid just because your heart is filled with hate. None of this is ever about Donald Trump. Of course, he's the center and the figure of it all. This is about an outgoing administration and faceless, unelected, some with faces, some not, unelected bureaucrats in the permanent government abusing the power, the almost limitless power that we entrust with them, abusing it and turning it against you, whether you like Donald Trump or not. You are the sovereign voter. He was duly elected, and they tried, one, to use those powers to prevent that, and two, to undo that decision that you did. Don't let them use your hate against you. Reason over hate. Reason over hate. I don't care if this was Donald Trump. I don't care if it was Hillary Clinton. I don't care if it was Bernie Sanders. I don't care if it was Barack Obama, George Bush, Bill Clinton, Sr., Carter, Reagan, nobody. I care that they took that trust and peed all over it. They abused their authority. The power is so immense. It was something of a folly for us to ever have entrusted them with it. But again, the crisis in Leviathan, it works. After 9/11, they saw their opportunity. They took it. Vice has been around for a while, but they greatly expanded these powers after 9/11. Much to the dismay of people like me who are left in the dust saying, oh my God, never, never should any government have this kind of power. They cannot be trusted. It doesn't matter who's president now. It doesn't matter who's FBI director now. Nobody can be trusted with this kind of power. That's what this is about. Wake up, civil libertarians on the left. So now we have Susan Rice on the way out. On January 20th, writes an email to herself, which is, it's a clear, she memorializes the meeting on January 5th because she knows that eventually the new administration is going to come in and they're going to see what they did. They're going to put the meeting times together. They're going to get the fact pattern and they're going to see what they did. So she tries to write a CYA email memorializing some of this stuff. And in I told you guys when this letter was first released that she will repeat the words, buy the book, buy the book. Who does that? Who does that? How many times do you have to repeat the words, buy the book? Number one, without sounding utterly suspicious. How many times do you actually have to repeat it? And then number two, why would you actually even have to mention it? Buy the book as opposed to what? Not buy the book, as opposed to against the law. And that's what she was trying to cover for here. So on January 5th, actually, I'll read it. Let's let her read it. On January 5th, following a briefing by IC, which is Intelligence Community, leadership on Russia hacking during the 2016 presidential election, Director Jim Comey and Deputy Attorney General Sally Yates in the Oval Office, Vice President Biden and I were also present. By the way, testimony with Sally Yates, she was stunned that Barack Obama was involved in these conversations. She is an Obamaite. She hates Donald Trump. She resigned for refusing to execute and enforce an executive order, which was the travel ban, praised by Andrew Weissman in an email, Robert Mueller's number top guy, praised in an email from him. In the end, the Supreme Court ruled that executive order was, quote, squarely within the scope of presidential authority. So that's the kind of woman we're dealing with here. A lawless bureaucrat, a lawless political hack. That's who Sally Yates is. And she was stunned. Barack Obama was A, at this meeting, and B, told Jim Comey what he told him. Couldn't even believe he was included in these conversations and thought, why? Because it's grossly inappropriate. If Donald Trump is not allowed to talk to his attorney general, to his FBI director, why the hell was Barack Obama permitted to do what it clearly appears he did, which was order James Comey to investigate these people? All right. President Obama, and this is what this letter is trying to do, cover for that. President Obama began the conversation by stressing his continued commitment to ensuring that every aspect of this issue is handled by the intelligence and law enforcement communities by the book, in quotes, as if Barack Obama actually said that. The president stressed that he is not talking about initiating or instructing anything from a law enforcement perspective. She just contradicted herself. Either Obama said intel and law enforcement operations better be handled by the book, or he didn't instruct law enforcement actions. Which one is it? Which one is it? He reiterated that our law enforcement teams need to proceed as it normally would by the book. Again, from a national security perspective, however, President Obama said he wants to be sure that as we engage with the incoming team, we are mindful to ascertain if there are any reason that we cannot share information fully as it relates to Russia. And if you remember from last week, that is a load of garbage, because she flat out told Trey Gowdy that there was no evidence and no intelligence that she had to suggest that either Trump or anybody on his team had any compromised issues with Russia. Michael Flynn, she already knew. Both the DNI and the CIA filings returned no investigations, inquiries, they're called, returned no derogatory information on Michael Flynn. None. So they already knew that was a load of hogwash. And yet she's trying to use that as a way to CYA in this email. When pressed on Michael Flynn, as we talked about last week, she says that she was concerned about things that Michael Flynn had said about Russia. When asked what, they were a declining power. He viewed them as what they are, a declining power, unable to truly project power across the stopping power of water, which is a military kind of term. What he means is the United States projects its power through, number one, the aircraft carrier. His concern was China, who not only were developing these projection modes, but also able to, reportedly, the carrier killer, able to destroy ours. And that is what, when pressed under oath, that is all that she could come up with Gowdy. That's it. And I know I'm going to get rid of this thing in a hot minute here, folks, all right? But I want to read the rest of it. I know it's kind of weird. That thing is supposed to cover all of us, really, anyway. But so we know that paragraph is bunk. Director Comey affirmed that he is proceeding, quote, by the book as it relates to law enforcement. Folks, did she or did she not just say that Obama made clear he doesn't want anything from a law enforcement point of view? First, it's all intelligence activity, intel gathering activities and operations, and law enforcement activities better be done by the book. But he doesn't want anything done by the book, to which James Comey reaffirms he's going to do it by the book. What the hell is going on here? This makes no sense, because it's not true, because this is a lie meant to cover up what really happened here. All right, let's finish. From a national security perspective, Comey said he does have some concerns that incoming NSA Flynn is speaking frequently with Russian Ambassador Kislyak. Comey said that could be an issue as it relates to sharing sensitive information. President Obama asked if Comey was saying that the NSC should not pass sensitive information related to Russia to Flynn. Comey replied, potentially.
That's Comey. That is textbook scumbag James Comey. Smear without any evidence, then equivocate over it. He added that he has no indication thus far that Flynn has passed classified information to Kislyak, but he noted that the, quote, level of communication is unusual. We'll return to that in a second, but let me wrap this up so I can take it down. The president asked Comey to inform, all right, to inform him if anything changes in the next few weeks that should affect how we share classified information with the incoming team. All right, I want to put this up, take this down so you guys, if you need to see it again, just hit me off in the thing. This is incredible. Jim Comey will later, obviously, like everybody else, like Brennan, like Clapper, like Yates, like Sean Henry, well, he's CrowdStrike, but the point is, like Susan Rice, no evidence. None. The FBI, in the handwritten notes, we now know were written by Bill Priestep. The FBI documents clearly show there was no connection there between Flynn and the Russians. The idea that it's unusual for an incoming presidential administration, it's unusual for that top foreign policy advisor to talk to his counterpart in foreign nations or diplomats is ludicrous. The one conversation, was carried out, was held after the vast majority of unmasking requests. They were on a fishing expedition. They had no evidence. This is all crap. This is all lies, BS. He had just had a call with Kislyak a little bit ago when this meeting was held January 5th. The call with Kislyak was held in late December. The vast majority of unmasking requests, which is essentially a way to spy on somebody, that was done prior to that conversation. As Lieutenant General Michael Flynn had with Russian Ambassador Sergei Kislyak. So they already know there is no connection and that this is total bunk. They already know it. Comey is simply referencing one phone call. One. And in the end, by the way, let me note, Michael Flynn did not really lie to Mike Pence. When you look at the actual issue, the media framed it as whether or not he talked to him about the sanctions. But in truth, Michael Flynn was talking about a greater policy. It's basically like a treaty agreement, which was an Obama administration initiative. He was talking about that in greater context. Sanctions are a part of that. But what the FBI and the media, the FBI that later would come back and charge him, what they were trying to frame it as is that it was like a specific conversation about that, when in fact it was not. So Susan Rice here is trying to memorialize this meeting to cover. It's a CYA move. I don't have to translate what CYA means. You know what I'm saying. And it doesn't make any sense at all. None. It makes no sense. You either are claiming Obama is saying nothing is from a law enforcement point of view. So why is she saying that? Why is she saying that? Because she doesn't want everyone to know or get the impression that Barack Obama ordered James Comey to sic the FBI on the Trump administration. And by the way, we already know from Strzok and Page emails that Crossfire Hurricane was already being was already being the findings of it, the activities, it was already being reported back to the White House before this meeting ever took place. Strzok and Page, the two lovers, now disgraced, former FBI employees, Peter Strzok, the former head of the counterintelligence unit at the FBI, and Lisa Page, a lawyer under Jim Baker, writing little love letters, little love notes to each other, blurred out in a incredible act of stupidity. Well, they just didn't think Trump was going to win at this time. that the White House wanted to be privy on all of this. And then if he did win, they had their insurance policy, which is J. Edgar Hoover. It makes J. Edgar Hoover look like a Boy Scout. What they did. Hoover, for those who don't understand, used to put together dossiers and files on presidents. And every time a new president was elected, he'd walk up Pennsylvania Avenue, stroll up to Pennsylvania Avenue, sit down with the president in the Oval Office, take out the folder, and say, "Hey, John, congratulations on your victory. By the way, if you don't play ball with me, I'm going to tell the nation and everybody about how you sleep with actresses. Hey, Lyndon, if you don't play ball, I will tell everybody how many women you have going in and out. And by the way, how you speak with your racial slurs and your filthy potty mouth. If you don't cooperate, so-and-so, this is how it's going to go." And typically, it really shows you why. Hoover got a bad name. Apparently, under Comey, at least the same thing was going on. This makes Hoover look like a Boy Scout because Hoover didn't have the powers, not the vast powers that we have now, that these intelligence agencies have now. So anyway, getting on to that, she first claims that he didn't order James Comey to be J. Edgar Hoover. But if so, we want to make sure it's by the book. But then goes on again to stress that, it's not a law enforcement activity. It's not. Which one is it? It doesn't make any sense. What she's saying doesn't make sense because it's somebody trying to lie to cover for themselves. And then Comey knows this guy is the biggest disgrace ever. I said, he is way worse than J. Edgar Hoover. This guy is the biggest disgrace ever. And we had a story on People's Pundit Daily after Hillary Clinton was let go. After that happened. And at first we didn't want to report the story because we thought, number one, a lot of it was anonymously sourced, and you all know how I feel about that. I don't like it. But we knew it was true. And the sources that we had, people, rank and file people. After Trump won the election, we wound up it was after Trump was, he fired him. After he fired James Comey is when I said, all right, run the story. And these people were telling us how delusional this guy was, how he had these grandiose, these delusions that he was the only honest man in Washington, D.C. That it was his authority from God to play these games and to put, he didn't really view it as abuse of power because he viewed it as him just carrying out his supreme virtue. And it's just keeping it's crazy, just crazy. And when it was being explained to us, it was almost hard to fathom how a man like this could ever lead the FBI. Very hard to believe, too. Very hard to believe. Then again, Hoover wore a dress on Saturdays, so nothing's surprises me anymore. But a lot of it was hard to believe. And now it's absolutely clear. They were telling the truth. Not that we didn't think they were telling the truth, but they just gave us too many details that were verifiable and turned out to be true. So that's the inside story on PPD, by the way. The inside story of the Comey and the Clinton emails scandal. It was basically sourced from insiders who weren't able to affect the actual investigation, but were forced to watch this egregious abuse of power carried out in front of them and really powerless to do anything about it. Very sad, but also extremely concerning because they were right. This guy really is this nuts. He really is this deluded. James Comey is delusional and he's a dirtbag. But anyway, moving on. So then he goes on to say, the dirtbag, that he potentially has information. There never was any information. The conversation he had with Sergei Kislyak, which was, again, one conversation in question that they really had any issue with, really could never have been a violation of the Logan Act because everybody knew he was going to be National Security Advisor. Those are for civilians. And by the way, it was meant for the early republic. It was meant so people weren't impersonating officials of the early republic. That's what it was. You get on a boat and take 3 months to sail to the next next post if you worked for the State Department back then. That's what, it was very hard to verify who you were. That's what it was for. It's ludicrous to think it was ever for something like they alleged it was for Michael Flynn. That's crazy. That's nuts. But anyway, he goes on to say this like as if, he admits he did not share any sensitive information. The only crime Michael Flynn committed, in truth, is the crime of not being a sycophant like everybody else was to Barack Obama. Barack Obama did not tolerate people who told him no. He did not tolerate. You think Trump, he's just cool about it. He doesn't have the same outlandish personality traits that Trump does. But in many respects, he's worse, way worse than Donald Trump on this issue. Donald Trump likes diversity of thought. He wants people to argue around him. So did George Bush, by the way. I give that to George Bush. He did. The second, George Bush. I don't know, honestly, about the first. But Barack Obama did not like that. He did not really like dissent. And especially when something was, if he plotted a course, like, listen, we're pulling out of Iraq. We're going to lie to the country about this thing called ISIS, and or ISIL, as he said it, because he's an anti-colonialist. We're going to lie to the country about ISIS. Get on board. And Michael Flynn did not get on board. We're going to talk to the Iranians behind everybody's back for a very long time. We're going to cut a deal with them, fly them a bunch of secret cash. We're going to give them their nuclear, we're going to let them, process fissile material. By the way, get on board. Michael Flynn would not get on board. And he knew, by the way, a lot of this stuff that they really could not let Trump have, the administration. He also knew how this community works and how it operates, while the rest of the people surrounding Donald Trump were novices and naive to this world and this community. So for the ultimate plan, he had to go. He had to go. We got a few minutes. Now I'm going to take some questions here. I'll scroll back and do the best I can. I will tell you guys that, again, always watch the show on YouTube. All right. I know I keep getting hit by this thing. I can't say it, enough. Always check out the show on YouTube. Don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel. So when you do, it'll give you a heads up before you go on. But a lot of people are complaining about Periscope. There's nothing I can do about that, folks. It's clear on Facebook. Everybody's home. Everybody's using it. All right. All right. My little producer over here. Take questions. Shut up. All right. Which one should we start on here? Let's look at if that's to pull some Democrat and independent support. Look, in the beginning, I think what we're seeing here, because it was a good question about how could his approval rating have gone so high and then his polling numbers go down. Until I poll myself, I won't know this for sure, but he had a modest rally around the flag effect, which will increase the president's approval number. But in the end, reality is always going to win. It's going to sit in and it's going to win. So I think twofold might be going on here. The rally around the flag effect was mistaken for an approval of how he was handling the coronavirus. All right. I just think that's true. And then secondly, I think the media was very eager to gauge that rally around the flag effect, to measure it, to write up stories about it, and to put it out there because they know something about Donald Trump, that he likes to tout himself. And if his approval, if the Washington Post runs a poll that says Trump's approval hits an all-time high during the coronavirus, he's going to say to himself, they love me. They really love me. I should keep doing what I'm doing. They approve of this. They'll be okay. They'll understand. And everybody did that. From the Washington Post, ABC, to Fox News, everybody. And they were willing and eager to do that. Trump has a very similar weakness to Richard Nixon. He wants everyone to like him. He's got to get over that crap. Forget about them. You want voters to like you. Reach out to those people directly that they try to scare away from you, if you want people to like you, reach out to those people. Forget about the idiots with the microphones and the cameras. They hate you and they hate the people who support you. That's all I can tell you. Reach out to those people. Tell them the damage this will do to their lives. Tell them how their family's future will be bleak if they make the wrong decision. I don't even think it's a question. Statistically and economically, I don't even think it's not even a matter of partisan opinion. The economy will come back quicker under Donald Trump than it will under Joe Biden. I don't even know how anybody could A, believe otherwise, or B, make an argument to the opposite. That's not even debatable. All right, so let's see. Let's see. You know what? You could help there, Madam Producer. You could give me one of those questions I might have missed. I'm trying to roll through a bunch of them. You know what I'll look for? And some of them aren't questions, but I'm looking for question marks. All right, because there are just so many of them. I'm looking for question marks. Let's see. There was a good one too before about the lockdowns. Okay. Yeah. Democrats were very good. They had in 2018, and this will be the last question I take, I guess, because we're here. But in 2018, they put together great candidates. Democrats had a bad bench, a very shallow bench for a very long time, and Republicans had a deep bench. That's really like the exact opposite now. There are a lot of districts that I do kind of like look at with Republicans. They should never have lost them, and they should absolutely win them back because they will return to the mean PVI, but the bench is shallow. So it's dangerous that possibly they may not. And then there are, there are just a lot of great candidates that Democrats had. They pushed up right for those districts. Think about Spangberg or whatever her name is, former CIA operative. She ran against Bratt. That is a district that Dave Bratt should have held on to. He was smeared. I mean, they ran black ops on people. It was like an intelligence operation what they ran. It wasn't a campaign. It was an intelligence operation. She should not really represent that district. She's not fit for that district, but she was fit for that time because the narrative surrounding that election was maybe Republicans are defending a traitor. And someone like Dave Bratt is a mindless defender of Donald Trump. And he could be defending a Russian traitor. You know, we should just elect a real patriot who used to work at the CIA instead. That was a narrative everywhere. It worked against Rohrabacher. We talked about him a lot. It worked against Bratt. It almost worked in somewhere like Kentucky. They ran these people all over the place. The sheer number of Democratic candidates who had some form of national security, military, intelligence, some kind of security background was unprecedented. Nothing even comes close. Nothing. All right, folks. It's already a couple minutes past the hour. We're about to be coming up on 4 minutes after afternoon. So, yeah, thanks for watching Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. I am the People's Pundit, Rich Barish. You guys can follow me at People's_Pundit on Twitter. Don't forget, before you leave, to subscribe to the YouTube channel. If you're watching on Periscope, when you leave, go subscribe to the YouTube channel. The quality is so much better. If you're watching on Facebook, then don't forget to like the page People's Pundit Daily before you go. And if you're on Facebook, and you just mosey on over to the YouTube channel anyway. If you're on YouTube, mosey on over to the Facebook page anyway. And go ahead and give us those likes and follows and subscribe. There's always those trolls out there. Give us the thumbs up on the YouTube video. All those metrics help. We will be back, of course, at 10 a.m. tomorrow on Thursday. We're here at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, noon, Monday through Friday, although there will be a couple of days where we will miss because of my personal situation with moving and prepping to move. But for the most part, it's a Monday through Friday event over here, folks. It will get better as it goes, too. It's going to be exciting. I'm pretty excited. Actually, I can't wait to work the rest of the day to get it better. And then the best way to support the show and help us do that, of course, is to subscribe to People's Pundit Daily by going to ppdnews.us/subscribe. That's the short link. ppdnews.us relevance.us/subscribe. All right. All the best, folks. I'm going to run. Can't wait to join me tomorrow at 10 a.m. tomorrow, and we'll see you back then. Got another very similar, great show lined up for you. See you then. All the best, folks.
How much you wanna bet that I can get you back inside your head before the summer ends and spread a little love. Just for a little fun, I'll make you come back to me before the rise of every sun. Baby, it's meant to be. I know you got a man, but he don't understand. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. Rhythm in our love, it's impressive, excessive. You can't make this stuff up. My chest beats, it's restless, wakes the neighbors up above. Yeah, baby, come and show me love. Baby, come and show me love. Because you're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
Take a one-way ride, steal us away to find a place we can hide. It wouldn't take much to spear for a night, just to give in to the need and leave it all behind.
'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. 'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow